Welcome, Kelly, to the What Not Why podcast. We just
Hi, Natalie.
did a name shift, and it's kind of fun. So
Hi,
tell me,
Natalie. Thanks. Thanks for
yeah.
having me today.
Oh, my pleasure, and thanks for coming. It's been
Of course.
so nice, as I said to right before we started, to get to know students in this way,
hmm
and especially one-on-one conversation. So why don't you share with our audience anything you want about your profile, your background, who you are, and then we'll get started.
Sure. I have a bit of an eclectic background. So I was an accountant for a very long time in a large organization. Left that a little about 7 or 8 years ago to find a little better work-life balance and went to teaching. And of course, it was right during COVID. Didn't find a lot of work-life balance then. But I started my business, Profit Lattes, started as Blue Water Virtual Business Solutions about 3.5 years ago. And it has morphed into a couple of different things over the years, but I'll just talk about what it is today. So I help other menopausal entrepreneurs like myself. So I had a bit of a rough run with menopause in the last couple of years, and it was a journey I wouldn't wish on anyone. And as I was coming out of it and returning to the business, because of course I had to sign a step aside from business, from my career, from a number of different things, I realized that my passion was lending itself more towards menopause awareness and helping other women to navigate such a crazy time. And so I shifted the business into coaching, business coaching for women in midlife navigating entrepreneurship at the same time, because it was very much a struggle for me to do both along with a career when I was doing it. So that's what brings us here today.
Okay, well, let's talk menopause.
Let's talk menopause.
This is a big topic on the team. We're all kind of at that stage of life.
Yeah.
So what was the hardest part for you? Or
The
is
hardest part.
continuing? I don't know.
Yeah, it's not so much now, but for the longest time, it was not knowing.
Mm.
I saw about 6 or 7 specialists and doctors and therapists, and I tried all of the holistic treatments you could find to try and figure out what was going on with this myriad of and plethora of symptoms that didn't seem to go together. So it was actually figuring out that what was happening to me, to my brain, and to my body was actually being caused by menopause. So that was the hardest part, with the second hardest being taken out basically of most of my life by it, because it was rather debilitating for me. Yeah, it's pretty scary.
Wow. So in your specialization, what have you learned about like the variance between women? Because it seems quite drastic. Like we don't that
Oh.
and that may be one of the reasons why it's so hard to pinpoint what those symptoms are about.
Yeah, you could talk to the woman that has no symptoms to the woman that, has a lot of hot flashes, or a woman like me who hardly had any hot flashes, but had everything else. So I had joint pain, I had, the brain fog, the cognitive issues, you name it, I had it except for hot flashes. And so many people do get dismissed based on their symptoms, because when I said I didn't have hot flashes most of the time, then menopause was taken right off the table and we didn't talk about it anymore.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I think, the lack of education in some of our healthcare practitioners is the biggest stumbling block for women. When it comes to even getting, when I look back now, I realize my menopause journey has so far been 12 years, from the start of perimenopause, as far back as I could pinpoint when it started. When I was diagnosed with my first prescription of many to come that really had
All right.
nothing to do with menopause. So it's education and awareness has been the difficult part.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what does that do to your life? Like I mean, I'm gonna guess, but I'll let you kind of tell us, like from accounting to menopause, business coach. Um, what have you noticed women need as support in this time?
They need understanding. They need awareness, about what could possibly be happening because of menopause. I blame my cognitive issues on my a concussion I had years and years ago, or I blamed it on I'm just getting old and maybe I'm just not up for this anymore. When memory issues came, I went to the Alzheimer's Society to see if I had early onset dementia.
Oh,
It was just, going from one place to another, trying to figure out what's going on while also still being, present in my job and present in my business and present in my life. And women need better support out there, not just from healthcare practitioners, but from their workplace, from their family, from their friends. We can lose so much during this period of time in our lives if we, are struggling on the inside and kind of cocooning ourselves and hermiting at home, I call it.
mm.
Because I certainly lost a lot for sure.
So what does support look like? Like what are women seeking and what are you offering?
So it's funny because Kelly, one of your members, posted the difference between therapy and coaching this morning, and people I get that off ask that question often. And so as we know, therapy deals with what's happened in the past and what's brought them to this point, and also deals with how they're navigating it. But coaching helps bring them through it and helps get them to see outside of what's happening in today's circumstances and seeing how they really can become a better version or better, just as good or better of a version of themselves as they were when they were young or before all of this started. So it's all about goal setting, like what does your new life look like? And that's, how women have come to start to refer to it as with me is I just don't know who I am now, or I don't know what's next for me now that I'm, not this. And so it's helping them seek, the appropriate avenues for treatment. So many women that come to me say, my doctor won't give me hormone replacement therapy. What do I do? Which happened to me, and it's all too common, unfortunately. So it's getting them to the other resources that can help them navigate what's going on with them and how to push through it. So particularly when you're an entrepreneur, your first instinct, I mean, I think it is for every entrepreneur every day, is to give up. Um, but in menopause as well, like it's you can't. My struggle was I can't do both. I just can't do both right now. I either need to look after myself or look after my business. I was fortunate enough to have a team to keep me going. But when I came out of this, so to speak, my goal was to really help women not lose their business and their sense of identity, as they're navigating these challenges of menopause.
Right. Well, I'm thinking about a lot of things, and one of them is the word grief, because of we're in the grief course right now, and it it's coming up for me because I'm feeling like there's an identity shift, which could result in some loss of who I was and how I was. You mentioned a few of those symptoms for yourself. What are you noticing about that in women? Or are they processing grief?
Oh, 100%. And I actually just had a conversation with one of your students and a former classmate of mine who's in the grief program. And it's definitely grief. I was a career woman, identified by my career. I was a ladder climber. I shot up from, 25 to 40 quite effortlessly. And I was even running my side business while teaching and, making six figures and, growing a team. And all of a sudden, all of that stopped cold. And so on top of navigating, not being at work and not being engaged in the business and not being engaged in my life, quite frankly, I was also, I felt like I was nothing, so that puts you into an even deeper depression. So not only do you not know what's wrong with you or how to fix it or who to go to for help, but you're starting to wonder, like, if I can't be that woman anymore, or that in that job anymore, what will happen to me? So I ultimately lost, my career out of this. And so that's been a lot to come to terms with over the last year. And who am I now is what always comes to mind for me, because it is a very big sense of grief over who you used to be.
Hmm. That's huge, right? And I think
Hmm.
about single mothers, single women out there who don't necessarily have a team or support around them, a family member who can help them through that. Like, what is the journey like for them?
Yes, now I was very fortunate. My husband was very understanding, and very helpful. But you know, the divorce rate amongst women 55 to 65 is, I think they said something like 73% blame it on menopause. You know, the insane rage, the anxiety, the stress, not to mention the other physical issues. And so, I also found lack of, you know, support in the friends and the family simply because they just didn't know what was going on and didn't know how to, it's not like you say, I have cancer, I'm sick. I can't operate the same way I used to. I'm not reaching out, but I still love you. And so, you know, they sort of get pushed aside and sort of forgotten about because it's not as, you know, much of a, you know, I hate to, you know what I'm saying? You know, it's not as much of a known thing, I suppose you could say, as other illnesses are. So for single women, particularly, you know, single moms that are raising kids on their own, it's critical that they find support somewhere. So whether that be in family and friends, you know, not cocooning. That was one of my downfalls. Was I literally just went inside, and away from most people, for a good year or so. You know, but that's where the therapists come in that have menopause aware, you know, support. That's where coaches come in where they have menopause aware support. It's going and finding their people, you know, going, joining groups of women that are talking about menopause. You know, my friends are sick of hearing about it now. My family's sick of hearing about it now, but not really. You know, everybody's intrigued by it because you're talking about the elephant in the room that has been an elephant for so long, that I think when women can just at least find people that they can identify with and that understand what they're going through, that's probably the best support that they can get.
So what about the other side of this, which is that, you know, the woman who gets the, oh, well, you're just going through menopause. If you forget something or if you have a moment, a human moment, which is pretty much common between, you know, any gender. What's, you know, it's the demeaning side of this conversation. What are your thoughts on that?
Happens more often than you think for sure, and it's so progressive, for those that struggle with the cognitive issues and all issues, but it's so slowly progressive that it starts with forgetting a word, you know, what you're going to say or what you left in another room, and then it goes into, like, you know, your sentences aren't really making sense, and then, you know, they're making fun of you, and you can, I'm pretty self-deprecating, so I can make fun of myself too, but inside, you're really reeling and thinking, God, I used to be so smart. And now I can't even think about what word I was supposed to say there. And then, you know, for me, it got really bad where I just couldn't remember anything and therefore couldn't teach, you know, and you're putting up with, you know, sort of the jokes from around you, but also what you're doing to yourself inside, especially for those high achievers. And so I think that's why I'm so vocal, or getting so vocal online in sharing just my story. This is what, you know, these are the things that used to happen to me. Yes, they're funny. Yes, they're stupid. Yes, they're crazy, whatever you want to call it, because, you know, the more people that start to realize when your wife is talking gibberish, it may not be because she has dementia, and it may not be because she's stupid. It may just be because she's struggling with something that she can't identify. So awareness and understanding, I'm just going to say, are like the top two things we need to do for women navigating menopause to help them.
So what was that like for you navigating your way out of that, those question marks and what's going on with me? Like, what were the resources that you tapped into? How did you do that?
So after about a year of going from doctor to doctor and treatment to treatment and therapy to therapy, and it was really seemingly, becoming sort of hopeless, and lots of things were coming to a head, you know, with the job and with, you know, all the business and all the things outside of myself, and so I really started to, do my research on, you know, you know, googling hypochondriac. I have 18 symptoms that don't go together, and just started talking about it, which I wasn't doing before. And it was actually a friend of mine that sort of clued me into, oh, all those things happen in menopause too, because I was the hot flash girl. I just thought it was hot flashes too. And I was young, right? I was only 47 when I hit full menopause, which is very young. And so I thought, well, that I know I'm in menopause because, we know the date that that happens, but that can't be what all of this is from. And so that's when I really started to do my research. And there are, a couple of really good books out there now. The New Menopause, How to Menopause are really two really good books. The Menopause Brain. So
Mm.
now these ladies are taking it public in a bigger forum than obviously someone like I can right now. And so you've got Dr. Mary Claire Haver and Dr. Lisa Mosconi, Tamsin Fell, who's kind of famous, and Halle Berry and all the celebrities. And so I really started to tune into, what's happening out there and who's talking about it. And then I sort of navigated my own way to treatment. But again, I was denied by my doctor 3 times before I finally sought, other opinions to kind of come back to him with. At which point, honestly, Natalie, I sort of had to say, I'd kind of rather be dead then, and I don't recommend people say that, but I was feeling so hopeless that he wouldn't give me therapy or treatment. And so it's definitely there's so much more information out on it now. But if you don't know to look for menopause information because you don't know that you're in menopause, that's the biggest problem, I think. They don't know and you don't know. I went to a heart doctor and, cardiac failure is one of the highest rates of death in women in menopause age because lack of estrogen causes heart issues. And I was told I was too fat and to go home and eat lettuce and vegetables, even though I was at heart failure level. Yeah. And so that was, and I
That
mean,
wouldn't work. That wouldn't go down so well with me.
well, I'd gained some menopause weight. So, in all fairness, I was a good 40 pounds heavier, but I thought, Jesus, I'm not that big. But I was at 47 and at heart failure level and still nobody put that
Wow.
together. Yeah. And so I think our healthcare system needs a lot more educating on it. And I think what's happening out there now with all these people talking about it, thank God for social media in this instance, that the younger generations are going to grow up with more information on it and maybe be aware when they hit perimenopause in their late 30s that, menopause is a scary word for younger people. So we throw the peri on there to make it less scary. But perimenopause often comes with more challenges than menopause itself that, postmenopause phase does.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and so I'm just I heard something that you mentioned, which was that you knew by the date in the calendar. I guess maybe it's been a year since I've had a period. I know I'm in menopause, and yet you still didn't tie your symptoms to that. And I'm curious about, like, is that a lack of information in society? Is that a lack of, like, I don't know, I don't even know to relate the symptoms to the physical aspect of what's happening to me?
Yep. So I saw a respirologist, a gynecologist, a cardiologist, and then, of course, my own doctor and a naturopath. Every single one of them asked me if I was in menopause. And I said, yes, it's been over a year, blah, blah, blah. Do you get hot flashes? No, not really. End of subject. So
Wow.
it was, yeah, lack of awareness on my part and lack of awareness on their part. And even when I said to my doctor, I think maybe I need hormone blood tests. Because one of my friends said that, because at that point you start talking to all your friends. And he said, well, why? And I said, well, he goes, well, we know you're in menopause. I said, I know, but like, isn't there something that could help me if something's off? Oh, no, we wouldn't give you treatment. It causes cancer. And then we just shut that down, and so it was 2 months later that I, still went back and said, "I just want the test, I just want to know." And then that's when I could see that I had no estrogen. And,
What?
yeah, that idea not idea, sorry, the belief that it causes cancer is it was what stops most doctors in their tracks from helping their patients. But, I don't know how much you watch about this out there, but, that was a study done in 2002 that has since been, sort of debunked and all of the new information that's out there, significantly, argues against it and for HRT. But, it's unfortunately not necessarily the healthcare world that's as interested in it, as women themselves are. So lack of education on my part and lack of education on healthcare part for sure.
Well, I'm stunned at the difference in healthcare approaches to this because my experience, I'm not super symptomatic. I'm 51 now. I'm through I guess I'm in menopause, but I also, um, was having dinner with friends, and the wife, and he's a GP, he's a doctor, and his wife is on hormone replacement therapy. And I'm going through some stressful times in business, but I'm handling things like I'm not like, I have some hot flashes or whatever it might be. But from that conversation, I want to say it was decided that maybe I should go and check, see if hormone replacement is going to help me. I walk into my GP and I tell her, this is what I'm exploring. She says, what are your symptoms? I said, well, I just feel like fine, but maybe I need to regulate this. I don't know. I have some stress. I have some hot flashes. I have some anxiety. Okay, here you go. Prescription. Go to the pharmacy, take it home. I get completely sick and grossed out. Like I could not take it for more than 4 days, progesterone or whatever it was.
Mm,
And then I stopped, and I'm totally happy that I did because I didn't need it at all. But I was listening to my peer group basically. And so, but accessible, so accessible that your story sounds horrifying compared to how easy that was for me to walk in and one conversation, walk out with a
mm,
prescription, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know if it's because my family doctor has been my family doctor for 30 years. Like, I don't know if it's because there's a relationship. I have no idea what the variables are, but yeah, it seems worrisome. Especially, I have friends who are going through terrible times, terrible, terrible times, like what you're describing, breaking out in tears for no apparent reason and not being able to even control it, even though they are mindful of the fact that they have no reason why they're crying,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
And you
Yep.
feel like a crazy person. Like you feel like you're losing your mind, and
Mhm,
it's happening in front of people, in front of your family, in front of your daughter, your son, it's this. And it's I've heard people describe horrible, horrible hot flashes, debilitating hot
mhm,
flashes.
mhm.
And so yeah, so what do you hope what does specializing in menopause mean as a coach? Because we know from the coaching aspect or the coaching side of things, we're not advising, we're not telling, we're not, prescribing. So what is your approach with this work when you specialize in this kind of way?
So I have two facets of my business currently. And so, one is as a menopause coach and one is as a business coach with menopause-aware support. So I'll talk about them separately because they are a bit different. Um, you know, this is moving me from business consultant to coach, right? Lots of conversations about that while I was taking my life and wellness certification. So, as a business coach, I coach them on their business and I coach them on, all things business. But I bring into it a menopause aware support. So, I am aware and I can help them with the issues that they bring up. Typically, this is going to be around fatigue, right?
Hmm.
Productivity, focus. Focus is a huge one, and so it's offering not advice because everybody's different, but offering support in the way of, sort of ideation. Here are the ideas. Here are the things that tend to work for, menopausal women and entrepreneurs. And so I sort of myself personally have like a resource hub where, if this is what you're struggling, this is what you can do. If they want specific menopause support, that's where we start to talk about, because nutrition's always a problem, right? We have nutritionists out there, but we all know what to do. And we all know that, it's not as easy as we think it is. And so that's where coaching comes in, right? That's me helping them navigate what will work for them specifically, helping me have them figure out what will work with them specifically for each of the areas where they may be struggling in menopause. So, two very different approaches. One, I bring the awareness to the difficulties that they could be experiencing while they're navigating these certain things in entrepreneurship. The other is true coaching, where I'm helping them to set goals to navigate and, function through various pieces of the menopause transition.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it sounds like a good model where you're separating out the two different lanes of, like, people ask me all the time, how do I specialize as a coach? And I think the answer, and what I find so valuable about the coach approach, is that starting out the conversation as a coach, you're hearing what's really important to the person. For example, losing weight to some people might be physical appearance and aesthetic. Others, it could be, I want to play on the ground with my grandchild and not struggle to get back up. Or I want to be able to walk for 10 kilometers and not get out of breath, or even 3 kilometers and not get out of breath. Like, there's different reasons for people, but what we tend to assume is either the average of all the people we've met, and that's probably what's going on for you, or we make assumptions based on, what we think is important to highlight. So the coach approach is really about discovery, and
Hmm.
then you can treat or you can advise or consult on the real issues. And that is the golden opportunity to combine expertise with coaching. Like, I really feel, as long as we separate them into two different lanes, because once you start mixing in advice to coaching, you're not coaching anymore. Right. So
Right.
it's this idea of really separating. I'm in the coach lane. I got the coach hat on. We're doing the coaching conversation. It's about, inquiry, it's observation, it's reflection, it's all of that. And then we're taking all that information of what's important to you and providing you with the solution that matters most to you, and collaborating.
Yeah, and this is exactly why I followed my menopause certification up with life and wellness, because I would find myself trying to one of my favorite parts of your program was reading and listening about the advice monster. I would
Yeah.
find myself trying to fix what was wrong and trying to say, "Yeah, I had that too." And what I've come to find out is everybody has something different. They called my issue stress and burnout for a long time, but until I finally said, "I'm not doing anything. I'm not working. I'm not in my biz. Like, I have nothing to be stressed or burned out from." That might have worked a year ago. And so everybody handles it differently, and it's understanding, is it truly menopause? Or is it actually one of these other things? If it is truly menopause, but you have other things going on, how are you specifically, Natalie, going to navigate through it? I can't tell you that. Right. I can answer specific questions for you on, what kind of, doctors can help or this kind of thing to point you in resource directions. But when it comes to actually guiding, it is 100% coaching. Right. So I really had to learn the difference between my business consulting and my coaching on support. So that,
Mhm.
your program was top notch for that because it really shifted my mindset in the area of coaching.
Good. Well, I'm happy to hear that. Sorry. But I was also curious about, so you went and specialized first as the menopause. What was the program that you took that you
So I took the menopause coaching specialist certification from Girls Gone Strong. So Molly Galbraith has really taken on the menopause world. She's actually just come out with a Menopause Plus course as well that I've just enrolled in. And truthfully, back when I did it, I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. I just knew I wanted to know more. And I knew that I worked with a lot of menopausal entrepreneurs, as I call myself. And so, when I did it and I took it, a lot of focus on fitness and nutrition. And my belief is, Kelly, stay in your lane. You're not a fitness or nutrition expert. You are not a therapist. So I had to find my lane, and my lane was mixing that with the business coaching and the life and wellness to, kind of not cherry pick other people's careers, if you know what that means. And so that certification was really good for me to couple with the life and wellness, because the life and wellness sort of gave me the tools to be a coach. And that certification, because it's all online, gave me the education and the materials and the resources for the menopause piece, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. Because I tell people all the time, our specialty is mastering the skills of coaching,
Hmm.
and that is a skill set on its own. The expertise, I mean, you could be accounting, you could be menopause. That comes from education that we don't provide, right? So this idea of mastering the coaching skill is where we specialize and where we live. And a lot of people will ask us, "Oh, do you have a menopause coaching program?" well, no, we don't. But we have the program that will make you the expert coach, and then you can specialize in menopause and go to other resources for that. So I'm happy to hear you, say that you sought out what you wanted to specialize in, and that there's a great program out there for people who are looking for that. Because we have had a lot of inquiries about that.
Mm,
But I do
mhm.
think that it's important to get the coaching skills part of it right, because otherwise it may become advice, or like what you call cherry picking and going into another lane, which could be, not so much fun for a client if they're given the wrong advice, or if they're, the counseling they're getting doesn't come from somebody who's been properly trained or educated in that area. So,
Well, and it particularly comes an issue because so many menopausal symptoms could be other things. My heart issues could have truly been, I mean, they were truly heart issues, but they may have been caused by, hardening of the arteries or something like
mhm.
that. So if I say, oh yeah, heart issues are menopause related, you need to just get some estrogen in you. No. And so I actually did look to your program for the menopause first. I would have done it the other way around had I known. I mean, they complement each other well enough now, but yes, I 100% agree with you that you do need to know how to coach. The problem I think is so many people are calling themselves coaches because even business coach isn't a real term, I find, right? You're a business consultant because you are telling them what to do. You can't really be a business coach and be, in my opinion, and be overly effective if you're not at least advising them in some way. Whereas the complete opposite is true for menopause. Right? You can't advise them and you need them to find their own way and you need to help them to come to their own, conclusions. So I think the word coach is getting a little confused out there. And, I would admit myself, I wouldn't have known the difference before doing this. So, I love that awareness is coming to light or is, more and more coming to light with your programs.
Well, yeah, it's you're not the only one. I mean, I'm going to say 9 on 10 people who come through the program um, are not aware of the difference between
Mm-mm.
coach, mentor, advice, consultant, even therapy. So it's something that I'm passionate about educating on, like public on, because I think consumers need to know. Like consumers are the ones at risk when they think they're hiring a coach, but the coach is offering advice that isn't they're not qualified to offer. The consumer is the one who's at risk, right? They will get that advice and take it and potentially act on it. And that's the risk. So I think there's a lot of educating that could be done. And I love that when people finish our programs, a lot of them want to jump on that crusade, right? To help others understand what the differences are. Not to say that the other approaches are not good, but coaching is coaching and consulting and mentoring are in different lanes. And so when do you want to apply which approach? And and so yeah, it's good to just bring that to light.
I
Um,
actually do that with my business clients and explain the difference to them. And I say, I act in both capacities. So when we're headed down the path of you want to know technically how to do something or financially, because I'm an accountant by trade, then we're going to we're going to work in consultant mode. If you're struggling with something in your business or making a decision, or you're struggling to, get to that next level, and it isn't because you're not doing all the things over here, then we'll move into coach mode. So just being able to do that for me is just, to be able to do that for me for them has been exponential because it's a multi-purpose. But you're right in making them aware because it could go the other way around. Those that don't truly know what a coach is, I've had people come to me with this. I want you to tell me what to do. So well, you asked for a coach. And so
mhm,
even,
mhm.
even they don't know what a coach is sometimes because they think, because of all these, coaches in the world out there, that it is telling them what to do. So I think education on both sides is necessary for to know the difference between, like you said, consultant mentor or coach.
Mhm. Well, and I love when people say, they want advice or they want to be told what to do because it's an opportunity to introduce them to a coach approach that they would have probably never had an opportunity to experience because they
Mhm.
just didn't realize that, oh, I do have the answers. I can be resourceful. I am whole. I am capable. Like those realizations those are actually, I think those are the clients that I'd love to work with the most because they get to embrace their knowledge and it comes
Mhm.
from them and that ownership of their ideas to move forward is so powerful in their self discovery and what happens next. um and so I was actually thinking while you were talking, I was wondering about your transition from sounds like accounting to like what am I going to do now? Menopause is like affecting your ability to work and to focus, and now you've settled, it sounds like, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, into what sounds like a really solid approach, business and menopause combined. What would you say to somebody who is looking to transition from a career to a coaching practice, or combining maybe something like a career and coaching? What would you think, from your experience, what would you tell them?
I think you have to go with where your passion is. I always went with where my vocation was, and so inherently was a business consultant at first, like a deep accounting, finance, business consultant, just because I'd been an accountant for so long. But for those of us that are navigating, the side hustle or the on the side job at the same time as your career, I'm already doing that in my career, right? I don't necessarily want to do that as my side job or my side hustle too. And so I missed that part in the beginning. And so when I came back from everything and didn't have my job and was going back to the business, was trying to figure out what next steps. We were actually launching a big program on, it's called the Profit Growth Mastery Program, and I shut it down mid launch, and I said, I actually don't want to do this. I don't feel it. And that's when I stopped, took myself back out. I wasn't ready to be back. And I took some more time off, and, still navigating that identity loss, that identity shift from, ultimate career woman to, what's next. And took my menopause coaching certification, followed quickly right after by my life and wellness. And it wasn't until I got, even towards the end of that, I would say, that I realize what it is that I truly want to do. And I would say I see myself in the future moving 100% into the coaching world. So for those that are out there, I would say the number one thing you should do is figure out what you want to do. That's the nice thing about women in their midlife or menopause, call it what you will, is we sort of have less what's to give, and we are more willing to take risks. We are more willing to go after what we want for once instead of what the obvious thing to do is. So just take a step back and say what it is that will keep you lit up, during what could be some dark times if you haven't gone through it already. Obviously you need to have skill. But it has to light you up at this point in time in this age. We don't just want to go start a new job, a career, or a business just for the sake of it. It has to be something that we're passionate about. And that's my biggest piece of advice for women looking to transition out of career or add to, because it can be a great enhancement to your career, right? I had the bonus of having teaching in between in between my corporate career and coaching. And so, really teaching post-secondary students, or people, was a good transition into it for me. So, got to find what speaks to you, I think, at this age.
Hmm. Yeah. A student the other day said, I finally reached the point, I think, where there was more summers behind me than ahead of me. And I thought, yeah, oh my God, I think that's true for me too. That really hit home. I was like, okay, yeah, you know what? Time of life to do what you want to do and experiment and see what's possible, which yeah.
Yeah, and they say that, menopause slows you down, which inevitably I think is true. No matter which symptoms you might have, or go through or even recognize, I think inevitably it has to slow you down, right? And I think that's a good thing because it gives us a chance to really look at what's next. I might have more summers behind me, but I know for certain now that I'm going to enjoy more summers ahead of me than I did enjoy behind me.
Mhm.
Because I just have a different outlook on life now after going through the last couple of years and realizing all that I missed climbing the corporate ladder, right?
Yeah.
In my life and, in my kids' lives and everything. So moving forward, while I'm excited about business and I'm excited about what's next for me in that realm, I'm also really focused on developing, the next chapter of my family and friend life as well.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think your priorities shift.
Mhm.
I I have always looked at my 50s as like I knew it was going to be the best time of my life. Like I just I don't know, I always knew that even leading up
Mm.
to 50. So when I turned 50, I was so excited. And it's true, like I don't know, something unleashed in me. It's like all that learning, all that, wisdom, accrued wisdom has finally found a place to land and things gelling and it's just yeah. So I think that there's so much to look forward to and mindset really does make a difference, which is why coaching I think is also powerful because it's a partner in mindset, right? Somebody who can support that.
Yeah, and I had the opposite. I was not looking forward to my 50s because, my I always thought I would die young. My grandma was 59, my mom was 61.
Oh wow.
So for
Mhm.
me, I was in no hurry to get there. And so when all of this started happening, I sort of just thought, well, here we go. I'm going to be even younger.
Mm.
But now you're right. Mindset is huge. And I think that is, going to be one of the biggest needs for people moving forward is shifting from that I hate to say it, but Gen X mindset of work, 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 work like a dog so you can retire, you know, at 60. So you lose, 60 years of your life. One of my first coaches, you'll appreciate this, said to me, so you're trying to work through to your pension so that for 9 years and so that you can only live for 6 years after that. Cause I told her what age I was going to die. And so what does that look like? And I thought that was a pivotal moment in my life from that coach. It was me thinking about what does that look like? And I started my business 3 days later just to have something to, generate a passion. It was literally 3 days later. And so now, Natalie, I can say I'm like you. I believe I'm gonna turn 50 next year. I'm doing a birthday quarter in Mexico. And
Nice.
I believe my 50s are definitely gonna be the best years of my life now. And I hope, I want more menopause awareness out there, so that people think the same thing, right? It sucks. We have to go through all the symptoms. At least there's treatments coming out now. But so much changes mentally for us, but in a good way this time, I think anyways, because we really are less about pleasing other people and, more about not pleasing ourselves, but like, making ourselves happy in the journey to, please other people. If that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. I feel really privileged to be able to live because of what you're saying. When not everybody's going to have a chance to be healthy and functional, and I'm so grateful for that every day. That I will not let a day go by that I don't get to experience the most of that, and including physical health, like testing my body. When I was at Harvard, I remember one of my first classes was a pro seminar and one of the women in the group was about 52, and she was doing her research. We had to like do a proposal on a potential capstone or thesis project. And her proposal had to do with this phenomenon where she lived, where all the women in that age group 52, 50, 52, 53, 55 were experiencing the best physical health of their lives. And they were part of this gym and they were doing these workouts. And she's like, what's this about? Like, this is, and so she had to do this research about like, what was this come down to? And I remember her final reporting was on the fact that what the women had attributed to was muscle gain, like gaining muscle mass at this time of your life is probably the most important thing you can do for your body. And I joined a gym and I got a trainer after hearing her report. And that I was like 48, 9, maybe, I don't know at the time. And I swear I don't know. I have no correlation, no scientific research, nothing to back this, but I swear that made the difference for me. That the more muscle mass I put on, the more like my journey through this was better. And I don't know if that's like a correlation or not, but
Oh, I would think that it has to be. I would admit that I was, I mean, I up the year leading up to my, I call it sort of my crash and burn when I say menopause really took me out. I was working full time and navigating a business on the side, and I was hardly eating at all. I certainly wasn't working out. And I was gaining weight because of, the menopause stuff, anyways. And I would have said I was in the worst physical shape. Not that I'd ever been super physical, but I would say now, I quit drinking alcohol. I started working out. I've been working out for 3 years now, and now I'm moving into strength training, and I'm turning my focus on nutrition. And, even though I wanted to do all that when I was younger to be skinny, now I want to do it to be healthy and for
yeah,
longevity.
yeah,
So it's just a completely different reason to do it now. And
yeah,
yes, with lack of estrogen, your bones are at significant risk of, bone density issues, cracks and fractures and, all those things. Women, that fall, you know, in later ages, obviously, that
yeah,
weren't privy to the hormone replacement therapy. Not that everybody needs it, but often that can result in death in older generations, sorry, because they aren't strong enough to sustain it, in muscle
yeah,
or in bone. Yeah,
yeah.
scary.
Yeah, it's a good awareness. Well, I'm really, really grateful for the time with you today. I think this is going to help a lot of people, even those that don't even realize that they that they want this awareness yet. Um, I do ask one question of all our guests at the end, and
Mm.
that is if you had one open-ended question, a what question, for the universe, and get the answer for, what would the question be?
If I had a what question for myself,
For the universe. You could
for the
ask the
universe.
universe one question. What would it be?
Oh gosh, if I could ask the universe one question, I suppose it would be, what does life look like in 10 years when, we are fast forwarded that much more and there's that much more technology and that much less personal, presence? Is that going to, coaching and therapy and so are increasing because of the lack of all these other things. And so I would think, what does life actually look like the further we
Mm,
get into technology? Because that
well,
really scares
that's
me.
a good one.
Yeah.
That's a really good one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, you mentioned some resources. I'm gonna maybe ask you to send those titles of books that you mentioned to
Yes, for
Lauren, and she
sure.
can post
Mhm.
them. And if anybody can reach you, can you want to just tell them your website or how people can reach you right now?
Sure, yeah, profitandlattes.com is the website, and then I'm on Instagram, and I think I'm all over LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'm also known as the Menopausal Entrepreneur, so I'm out there as that, and
Okay.
you'll see that coming to light a little bit more as we ramp up the menopause, side of the house, but I'd be happy to share the resources that have helped me through this for sure.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
thank you. So we'll put those in the show notes as well, any way to reach you. And I just want to say thank you. This has been a joy.
Thanks for having me, Natalie. It has been nice to talk to you. You have a good day.
You too.